From doctor to ghost hunting TV star and now Reform UK's new chairman. David Bull has had an unusual journey into politics, and he was unveiled earlier today following the very sudden resignation of one of the party's key figures, Zia Yusuf, on Thursday. Nigel Farage insisted he is the ideal man for the job.
He comes into this job with terrific verve, energy, enthusiasm, and it's going to be great fun. Dr. David Bull.
Well, our political correspondent Carl Dinham was at that press conference earlier. Carl, he's got a very colourful CV to say the least, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he started life as an emergency room doctor. He's a fully qualified, although doesn't practice anymore, doctor. And then he moved into TV as a TV doctor and then a TV presenter. And he's done all sorts of programmes people will have heard of, from This Morning to Tomorrow's World to Watchdog, John Craven's News Round, for those who are old enough to remember that. He was slightly offended this morning at the press conference that the thing that people most seem to know him for was something called Most Haunted Live. So, I mean, look, he's not the first doctor to take a leadership position in British politics or the first journalist, but I think he's probably the first TV ghost hunter.
Absolutely. So, Carl, what are his politics like? What type of operator is he likely to be in the party, do you think?
He's very close to Nigel Farage. He's been involved in, firstly, the Brexit Party and then Reform for a very long time. He takes over from Zia Yusuf, who fell out with the party over the request from one of its MPs, Sarah Pochin, for a ban on burqas, which Yusuf then called a dumb idea. He resigned from the party, then unresigned from the party, and although he's back in, he's not going back into the chairmanship. So David Bull is now the chairman, but won't be doing the same job quite as Zia Yusuf. I think the party has recognised that it was too big a job, especially as they have to build something up from pretty much scratch towards the next general election. So I think David Bull is going to do a little bit less of the administrative work and will be more of a cheerleader, going around the country, revving up the party membership and trying to get them in a battle-ready position for the next general election.
So you talked about the burqa ban there, Carl. It's been quite a point of discussion and controversy in the party. Should it be party policy? Should it not? What's the latest on that? Yeah, well, so Nigel Farage was asked about that a number of times this morning, and each time he looked quite uncomfortable, I thought, and he tried to move it on to other territory. So he was saying things like, you know, I think we should have a debate about face coverings in society in general, particularly at protests. Now, I did ask David Bull afterwards what his view on the burqa was, and he was much more in line with that MP Sarah Pochin, who asked the question about it in the House of Commons. He said it should be banned because he doesn't believe that it fits with British cultural values. So I think this is something that Nigel Farage doesn't really want to get bogged down in. He doesn't see it as a priority for the party or something which is an issue with great widespread appeal, even though a large number of his party colleagues, including his new chairman, do take quite a tough view on whether or not Muslim women should be allowed to wear that particular item of clothing. And some of them, including the new chairman, would even go so far as to ban it. So you mentioned Zia Yusuf. Obviously, he quit the party on Thursday and rejoined around 48 hours or so later. What's the feeling now in the party? Is it all happy families again?
They certainly give that impression. One thing Nigel Farage is great at is laughing off controversy. So he started his press conference this morning talking about how Zia Yusuf had tried to escape, had got under the wire, but they caught him in the woods on his way, as he tried to escape from the prison camp, as Nigel Farage was describing it. And that drew great laughs from the MPs in front of him. I mean, the fact is that Nigel Farage's parties, be it UKIP, the Brexit Party, Reform, do seem to attract characters who have very forthright, strongly held views and who occasionally rub up against each other in very dramatic fashion. And there are resignations and fallings out. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw more of those. So at the moment, yes, they all seem quite happy. But you wouldn't bet against things getting a bit more rough and tumble within the Reform Party before we get to the next election.
So you look at David Bull's CV, he's been a TV presenter, a doctor. He almost feels like the type of appointment you could imagine Donald Trump making. And obviously we know Zia Yusuf's heading up the UK Doge, as they call it.
Do you think Reform are happy for those comparisons to be made with the Trump administration?
Very much so. Look, they welcome those comparisons. They are trying in some ways deliberately to emulate what Donald Trump has been doing in the United States. In fact, Nigel Farage was asked about why he's calling his unit for finding efficiencies and tracking down corruption in government spending, UK DOGE, why he is aping what Donald Trump is doing. And he said that they actually did some polling on whether or not they should call it that. They had another name, he didn't tell us what, but he had a British name lined up, but did some polling and found that people just understood what DOGE was because it's had such a high profile, the Department of Government Efficiency in the United States, that just in order for people to understand what they were doing, it was easier to call it UK DOGE. But I do think at the same time there's a deliberate aping of what the Donald Trump's Republicans are doing in the United States and are doing to some effect, without a doubt. So that's the direction of travel. There are many other ways in which they're similar, that they love going for controversy. They're very deeply embedded in the culture wars, as we've seen with all this business about banning burqas and banning flags from council buildings that they don't like. They're not afraid of that kind of stuff. They think they can make great political capital out of it.
Carl Dinnan in Westminster, thanks very much for taking the time. Thank you, Carl.